When the going gets tough, the tough get going. John Thomas. I have a problem with this saying, not because I think it's false, but because I disagree with half of it, specifically the second half. I mean, yes, the tough get going when the going gets tough. But what is it that drives the tough to not only get going, but keep going? The dabbler's dilemma. A dabbler is a jack of many trades, but yet a master of none. This approach may give the dabbler a wide range of skills, but unfortunately, each skill is severely lacking in depth. This raises the question, do dabblers dabble by choice, or do they lack the ability to focus on one thing for a lifetime of learning, which then leaves them with no choice but to dabble? Imagine, if you will, you finally decided to do it, whatever it is. It's something that's been on your mind. And now it's time to start. Now, maybe you start because you finally got the courage to begin. Or maybe you start because you thought it will be easy. And at first, it is easy. A lot easier than you thought. What you're learning, what you're doing, comes to you naturally. You pick things up fast, and you tell yourself you'll be one of the best in no time. But then, just as soon as you spread your wings with the confidence to soar high beyond the clouds and into the shining beacon of light in the sky, something changes. You doubt yourself. You feel frustrated and plagued with the negativity of never achieving your goal. This makes your wings break into a multitude of separate feathers. You stop soaring, you start falling, you give up. Believe it or not, as sad as giving up is, it's actually not the real tragedy. The worst thing about giving up is not knowing why. Was it something about you? Or was it something about the thing you were doing? Is there something you lacked that everyone else had? And if so, then what is it? If you are the kind of person who has always wondered why you go through this cycle of starting but never finishing, dabbling but never mastering, then this video was made for you. By the time you're done watching this, you will have the answers you seek to change your life forever. Not quite the hero's journey. We've all heard of the hero's journey. It's one that's been mapped out and used to tell timeless tales. We also know that we are the heroes of our own stories. So what happens when our story isn't one of being the hero who triumphs over the villain, but rather one of a learner who grows into mastery? In this case, the hero's journey becomes the learner's journey. The question then is this: does the learner's journey have a map? And if it does, what does it look like? Knowing the terrain ahead on your way to mastery will not only help you see the invisible path before you, but also the obstacles to expect along the way. Perhaps we will never know how far the path can go, how much a human being can truly achieve, until we realize that the ultimate reward is not a gold medal, but the path itself. George Leonard. In order to appreciate the right way to do things, it is important to first of all examine what it is that you've been doing wrong. On screen are two graphs depicting two types of progression. On the left is a linear progression, and on the right is something called an exponential progression. The yellow crowns on the y-axis show the amount learned on your way to mastery. The clocks on the bottom represent the amount of time spent learning. The first one is simple. It shows that you continue to improve at the same rate over time. For example, you learn 50% of what you need to know in 50% of the time you have to learn it. The second can be seen as depicting the 80-20 rule. That is, you learn 20% of what you need to know in the first 80% of the time, and then you learn the next 80% in the last 20% of the time. Somewhere along the line is a turning point that leads to accelerated growth in a very short time. This is what you see whenever someone you've never heard of before appears to have achieved overnight success. The graph on the right is the more realistic of the two. Its curved nature is where the term learning curve comes from. Learning curve? A learning curve for the learner's journey? Is this the map we are looking for? No, it is not. There is a third graph that tells the full story, and that is the graph that holds the key meaning. Learning a new curve. A long time ago, I read a book that illuminated the path I'm going to share with you. It's a book written by someone called George Leonard. The main title of the book is comprised of a single word: mastery. Somewhere within the pages of the book was a golden nugget that changed my life. It was simply called the mastery curve, and this is what it looked like. You can think of the mastery curve as a combination of both the linear and exponential progression graphs. They are combined in a way that reveals a pattern that shows what to expect as you learn. To fully understand what it is, we need to take a closer look by breaking it down into stages and seeing how each stage affects what we think and, more importantly, how we feel as we learn. The stages. The mastery curve has 4 stages. The first is the novelty phase. The second is the peak. What follows after that is a downward trough. And last but not least, is a leveled segment called the plateau. And now it's time to focus on each stage in more detail. The novelty phase. Whenever you dabble, you're starting from zero, introduced to a whole new world. Everything is both new and exciting. The basics are easy. You experience rapid escalation. Your growth seems linear. It is said that the more you know, the more you realize that there's a lot you don't know. So the little bit you know as a newbie makes you feel like a genius. You run on pure enthusiasm. You get all the gear, buy all the books, watch all the videos. Until something happens, and it all seems to come to a halt. You've reached the end of the novelty road. The peak. This is where many lose their wings. The novelty that kept them going was as unreliable as feathers held together by candle wax. The peak is the highest point a dabbler will get to before quitting. Since the rapid escalation is gone, the dabbler leaves. But some dabblers push on, hoping to put their feathers back together again. But if this was an unexpected letdown for the dabbler, then the next stage is just short of a slap in the face. The trough. What's worse than losing your forward momentum when it comes to learning? You may think it's stagnation or not improving at all. Well, how about getting worse when you thought you'll get better? Welcome to the trough, the stage of learning where you experience a dip in your performance. This backward momentum is so unnatural, it makes the dabbler feel as though he is losing his mind. It's not just a setback, it's a step back. At this point, the dabbler is convinced that the only sane thing to do is to give up. And who could blame him? But what if, by some miracle, the dabbler decides to push on? What does he end up dealing with then? The plateau. The plateau can be thought of as the barren wilderness of the mastery curve. Getting through it is like marching across dry terrain with nothing but scorched bedrock beneath you. Nothing grows in the barren wilderness, and this includes the dabbler, or so he thinks. Here, any improvement seems non-existent, and the feeling of rapid learning is nowhere on the horizon, apparently never to return. This is where the going truly gets tough, and the only thing that will get you through is putting one foot in front of the other as you march onward, non-stop. The dabbler, at this point, asks himself the question he always asks before he quits. It's a question we all ask ourselves before we throw in the towel. We look at what we're doing and ask, why? Why am I doing this? There is a saying, you can do any what and get through any how, as long as you have a strong enough why. Where there is no will, there is no way. You need a strong enough reason. This strong why that serves as a powerful reason is the very thing that not only gets the tough going, but keeps them going. In short, what makes you strong isn't merely toughness, it's purpose. The lack of a strong enough why is precisely what keeps the dabbler dabbling and never mastering. From dabbler to master. The difference between those who quit and those who don't is that those who stay the course have an answer to this question. In fact, it's more than just an answer, it's a vision, conjured by imagination and fueled not by novelty, but by passion. The knowledge, skill, or goal pursued is one they simply can't live without. And despite not knowing anything about the mastery curve, they are still able to see the way. Not because seeing is believing, but rather it is because believing is seeing. And what do you think they believe in? Well, I'll tell you what. They believe in themselves. Now it's your turn. Let's talk about you. How should you navigate the curve? I'll tell you how. You do it like this. First, pick something you want to do, but not just anything. It has to be something you've always wished you could do. Odds are, if things were different in your life, you'd be doing it right now anyway. But before you begin, ask yourself why you want to do it. You don't need a reason that makes sense. You just need a longing to feed your soul. Use your imagination to create a vision for your life. See yourself in your mind's eye living as a master. The feeling of joy and freedom you get from that vision is your passion. Get a mood board, a to-do list, a diary, anything that would add to your vision as you feel the passion grow within you. Once you get started, the novelty phase will be easy. The real test will begin once you reach the plateau. Unlike the dabbler, you will cross it. Because when you stop to ask yourself, why am I doing this? You will have a strong enough why that will get you through the how to accomplish what you want to do. That will get you going and keep you going all the way to mastery. Wash, rinse, repeat. There are plants that spend a lot of their time growing downwards into the ground before making their growth obvious as they emerge from the surface of the soil and grow towards the light. But while they take root, they still need nourishment and care. In practice, the hidden thing about the plateau is this. Although you may appear to have stagnated and not be growing at all, the truth is you are growing. It's just not apparent. Everything is taking shape and taking root within you. And just like a plant breaking through the soil, you will reach a second point of rapid growth. A point only reached after marching through the wilderness. As a result of you tediously, painstakingly, habitually putting in the time and effort regularly. But be warned, because when you apply this to what you learn, it's easy to forget that this second growth spurt comes with its own peak, followed by its own trough. And just as it was after the novelty phase, before you know it, you'll be faced with yet another plateau. Only this time, it's a plateau that literally puts you on a different level. One plateau after another, onward you go, leaving all the dabblers far behind. You soar, not with wings cobbled together with candle wax and loose feathers, but with the wings you sprouted when you took a leap of faith. Wings that can take the heat as you grow and fly towards the beacon of light in the sky. Those who are tough have patience. Those who are tough persevere. Strength is what makes the difference. But what makes you strong isn't merely toughness. It's purpose. Purpose is the very thing that will give you the drive to strive, to not only survive, but to go on to thrive. Earlier on I mentioned that the book titled Mastery by George Leonard changed my life. I have applied my knowledge of the mastery curve to not only get better at drawing, but also do what I'm sharing with you now. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my very first video on my very first YouTube channel. It's been quite the journey just to get to this point. It got tough along the way, but what kept me going was my purpose. I'm sure you'd like to know what my purpose is. Well, believe it or not, my purpose is you. If watching this video has changed your life for the better, then you are the reason why I made it. I guess that's why it's called YouTube. You may master yourself and even master a skill, but you must also master the art of caring about others. Doing so will move you to spread both insight and love. I want you to know that I love all of you, and all that's left is for you to love yourselves. Doing so may be tough, but I know you can, and I know you will. Alright, it's time for one last thing, and it's important. On your way to mastery, there are two obstacles you will encounter: boredom and frustration. Knowing how to deal with them will help you flow through the process with Zen-like focus. Up next is the psychology behind how to get in the zone for peak performance. I'll see you there.